Hey, what's up guys? Tyler here with Secure Team. So as you read in the title of this video, there is a lingering question throughout the entire UFO research and paranormal research community right now as to whether UFO researchers are indeed being murdered. Now, it is no secret that all of us who have grown in one form or another into prominent or even semi-prominent positions in this research to the point where we actually have an audience, that the danger from the government or those who would want to keep you quiet and those who want to keep us from speaking on this sensitive information grows monumentally. And with two new recent deaths of UFO researchers in the past month, I'm starting to honestly believe that those concerns are justified. And there have been a lot of researchers, former military and government witnesses who have come out in the past and blown the whistle on the secrets and lies coming from the highest reaches of our government that have been murdered or died very mysterious deaths throughout the years. Some of those, like the late astronomer Dr. M.K. Jessup, who was the first individual to reveal the details of the famous Philadelphia experiment, who died in 1959 of a mysterious so-called suicide. Then we have more recent and suspicious deaths of other UFO researchers such as Phil Schneider, Ronald Rummel, John E. Mack, Alastair Beckham, Alan J. Hynek, Danny Colsolero, Dr. Carla Turner, Ron Johnson, Con Routine, Ann Livingston, and a number of others who both in the past and recently have lost their lives due to suspicious circumstances, all of which were ufologists, each giving a piece of themselves to the greater good and to the truth that we are all trying to uncover. Now we have two more deaths to report, unfortunately, and sadly, starting with the death of a fellow UFO researcher by the name of Gaurav Tiwari, who is a native of India and who was found dead under apparently mysterious circumstances. Then we had another man by the name of Max Spears, who was a paranormal investigator who had claimed that he was once part of a secret government super soldier project, who was also found dead in Poland earlier this month. Another recent case, which happened in February 2009, that of 44-year-old Paul Vigay, who was a leading crop circle researcher who had worked on Mel Gibson's film Signs, was found floating off of the coast of Portsmouth, England. And, many of these researchers who are dying, I've noticed there's a pattern. There is always a mystery surrounding their deaths, and 9 times out of 10, they are suicides. And these are people whose family have stated that there was no indication that these people had any intention of killing themselves, some of which had wonderful lives researching the topic that they love. Take, for instance, the case of the newly deceased Gaurav Tiwari, who was found at his Jakarta flat in northwestern India under what has been reported as, quote, mysterious circumstances. And the fact that Mr. Tiwari was a recent newlywed. He had just gotten married, and relatives have stated that he had no reason whatsoever to end his life, and that he seemed completely normal in the days leading up to his death, drinking coffee with his wife, hanging out with his family, when all of a sudden they heard a loud thump in one of the rooms in his house and found him lying unresponsive on the floor in the bathroom, and he could not be revived. And this was right after he was hanging out with his wife, drinking coffee, doing what newlyweds do, enjoying life. And now he's dropped dead, and they are labeling it a suicide? And then we have Max Spears, also recently dead of a supposed suicide. and who again was one of the witnesses to the Bases Project and a, quote, super soldier, and who was found unresponsive in his Warsaw apartment on Saturday, July 16th, 2016, and the details that led to his death have still not fully been explained. And yet again I say, it is a sad month for ufology. This danger, as I've spoken on in the past, is very real. You know, I've gotten threats via email, I've gotten phone calls, and I've had a lot of strange things happen that have concerned me. Disconcerted is the word I would use, and obviously there are plenty of people who like to troll on the internet and will say the most hateful and egregious things you can think of. But it really makes you wonder who is on the other end of the keyboard behind some of these screen names who are saying these things, and should they be taken seriously? Phil Schneider, who I've talked about, it's been a while, but I've spoken about him, one of the most mysterious murders of a man who literally blew the lid off of the government's cover-up of underground bases that are used to house aliens. Now, for those of you who don't know, Phil Schneider was a very controversial man up to his death in 1996. Now, Phil worked with the government, and he worked in some of these underground bases. He was a leading geologist, and in 1979 he was employed by Morrison Knudsen Incorporated, which was involved in building an addition to a deep underground military base at Dulce, New Mexico. The project included the drilling of 4 holes in the desert that were to be linked together with tunnels. Philip's job was to go down the holes and check the rock samples and recommend what type of explosives to use with a particular rock. Now, in the process of doing this, the workers accidentally opened a large artificial cavern, a secret base, which was being used to house gray aliens, or aliens known as the Greys. What ensued next has come to be known as the 1979 Dulce firefight. And in the panic that occurred after this, 67 government workers and military personnel were killed, and Philip was one of the few that survived, albeit badly wounded. He was only one of 3 people to live. And as you'll see in his past videos that you can find here on YouTube, he shows his actual scars on his chest, his missing fingers that were caused by his being struck by an alien weapon during this firefight that would later and finally result in Philip getting cancer due to the radiation from whatever type of laser weapon these aliens were using. So 2 years prior to his death, Philip had begun a lecture tour, traveling the country to talk about the government cover-ups, the black budgets, the UFOs, and that the Eisenhower administration had formed a treaty with extraterrestrials in 1954. So on January 17th, 1996, just 2 years after he started this lecture tour, Philip was found dead inside of his apartment. They said that he had apparently been dead for 5 to 7 days, and the coroner's office had initially attributed his death to a, quote, stroke. However, in the following days, some very disturbing details came out, and they realized that he had not died of a stroke, but that he in fact had been murdered when they found one of his catheter tubes wrapped tightly around his neck. Later on, the coroner attempted to come out and say that this was a suicide. However, if you knew Phil and you knew that he was missing virtually all of his fingers on one of his hands, you would realize that there is no way that Phil could have tied this rubber hose in a knot around his neck the way it was and with the force that was used to strangle him. Now, I urge all of you to research Phil Schneider. It's a very interesting case, but again, these cases are real. People have been murdered. They're being covered up to look like suicides. very mysterious deaths, and it's just very strange that we've had 2 more people dead of very mysterious circumstances just in this past month. So my heart goes out to the families of Max Spears as well as Mr. Tawari, and hopefully we will not be posting any more updates to this type of video, but it is a very serious matter. These deaths should drive home that much further to those who may be skeptical or find this research laughable, that you are quite literally dead wrong, and that people have been and are continuing to drop dead for speaking nothing but the truth and against the oppressors who have kept us in the dark for so long. So again, I urge all of you to be careful. Again, heart goes out to these people. Be sure to stick around. We've got a lot more coming. We are going to keep this channel going no matter what, and I assure all of you, I will never do anything to harm myself or to jeopardize this channel. So I'm putting that up now. If I disappear, then you definitely know something is up. So thanks for watching. Share, like, and subscribe. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you back soon with much more. Stay safe, guys.